What's it going to take for USC to win at home on Saturday? Because it doesn't think like anybody's giving them a chance, not even at home.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download your podcast, this show is always free, and you know this show is always going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the question, what's it going to take for USC to pull off the upset at home? They're the underdog. I've seen it anywhere from 5.5 points down to 4 points. So let's just pull it somewhere in the middle. USC is roughly a 4.5 point underdog at home. Neutral site, call it a touchdown, right? All right. So I think if USC is going to win this game, it's not rocket science. It doesn't take, you don't have to be good in algebra, calculus. It's two things. Run the ball. Actually, it's three things, but as far as USC is concerned, if you want to be able to run the ball on offense, you got to be able to pass protect better. And then defensively, you got to stop Penn State's run game. That's what they want to do. They want to lean into it. So how about coming out, playing the game that you've been playing all year long against everybody, except for that last game against Minnesota? Because that's really the first time you came out and you didn't look like you were ready to play. And you never got ready to play throughout the game. You got to come out physical. You got to come out and protect Miller Moss. Penn State wants to do two things. They want to run the ball. They want to jam it right down your throat. And then when you're on offense, they want to get after the quarterback. They want to pressure. The Nittany Lions have one of the stingiest defenses in the country. They're good. On paper, you look at them statistically, they're right there at the top. They're also coming into town 5-0 undefeated. They're the number 4 ranked team in the country. They've done what they're supposed to do. They're beating everybody in front of them. Have they looked impressive in all their games? No. But they've done enough. Here's the other thing. They've only played one game on the road so far this year. Opening game of the season at West Virginia. They won that game 34-12. It was actually their easiest win, save for their win at home against when they dragged Kent across the field 56-0. So you've got that win at West Virginia 34-12. Since then, 4 games in a row at home. Bowling Green, that game was actually close. It was tight. Penn State pulled it out 34-27. So it should give you some hope, USC fans, right? If Bowling Green can stay with Penn State, maybe your squad can do it at home as well. I mentioned their win against Kent 56-0. And then they beat Illinois 21-7. That was one of those physical Big Ten matchup type of games. And then last week, they were able to eke out a 27-11 victory over, I'll say, they're a hapless UCLA team. They're not good. They're good on the defensive side of the ball. They're still good on that side of the ball, but offensively, they're making USC look like an offensive juggernaut. And we know right now USC's offense isn't playing really well. Now, if someone is saying that Penn State has played a tough schedule, don't believe them. They're a liar. I just went over their schedule for you. Again, they've taken care of business, and that's what matters. USC, on the other hand, they're 3-2. And despite some real shady officiating in both of their losses, USC should also be 5-0. They didn't lose the game because of the crappy officiating. It contributed, but that's not why they're 3-2 instead of 5-0. And no, they're not 2 plays away, like Coach Riley likes to imply. look, I get the spin from Coach Riley that you want to put the positive spin on it, but they're more than 2 plays away from being 5-0. Yeah, you can point to 2 specific plays and say, make those stops, USC wins. Can't do that. But again, the plays that stand out are those ones on defense. They're the missed tackles after playing great on that side of the ball for 90% of the contest. And then all of a sudden you have that breakdown. USC's run defense has been super solid all year long. Those goal line stands, they nut up every time. They deserve some props. Yeah, I get it. They're giving up 150 yards per contest on the ground, but it's because of those explosive plays. On the whole, they're playing the run pretty well. So if USC wants to win on Saturday, they need to continue to stop the run game. They need to be more consistent, but they just need to continue to make every yard gained from the opponent on the ground difficult. So just keep stopping the run and again and again and again, because that's what Penn State does. They like to run it 40 times per game, about half of that through the air. So yeah, it's literally a 2-to-1, 40 runs to 20 passes. So just like against Michigan and against Minnesota, you have to stop the run. Right now, Penn State averages 217 yards per game, 218 yards. And that averages out to about 5.3 yards per carry. That's good. USC, like I mentioned, they're giving up 158 yards per game, just under 5 yards per rushing attempt. When Penn State went on the road against West Virginia, their star running back, he's good, Nicholas Singleton. He ran it 13 times, 118 yards. That as a team, they ran for 220 yards. What I found interesting is their next leading rusher in that game was their quarterback, Drew Allar. 6 rushes, 44 yards. That's the other thing. USC's defense cannot allow Penn State's quarterback to make plays with his legs. He's not, he's not the most athletic guy, but he knows when to take off. He'll just, if it's there, he'll take it. So if the Trojans are able to contain Nicholas Singleton, and I'll call him his backup, but it's kind of their 1-2 punch in the backfield, Katron Allen. If you can keep those guys, 100 yards, 120 yards per game total, just keep an eye on Drew Allar and any type of RPO looks that they try and throw at you. Oh, and just let me add a little bit of a PS to this, since USC needs to stop Penn State's run game. Remember, USC hired away Antonlynn from UCLA. The Bruins defense, they're still holding their ground. Last week, UCLA held Penn State in Happy Valley to 85 yards on the ground. I get it. Nicholas Singleton wasn't playing. Still, you have to, right? If UCLA had any type of offense, they might have won that game. And that's why I think there's hope for USC fans and USC at home hosting Penn State. Now, the other half of the equation for USC, they got to stop the run, but they got to start protecting Miller Moss when it's time to throw the ball. They don't do that, USC's got no chance to win this game. The biggest challenge for USC this year, bar none, has been at both tackle spots. And Coach Riley said in the spring, if I remind everybody, the transfer portal was, it was an option. They had to go there because they needed depth at both offensive tackle positions. They needed some experience. In case it didn't work out, somebody that they can trust to slide in there and not be overwhelmed by the moment. They ended up getting nobody. Not one person in the offensive transfer portal. So for whatever reason, Coach Riley, Coach Josh Henson, they said, you know what? It's time. We're going to plant our flag right now. We're going to develop our recruits. The guys we brought in 2023 and 2024. This is what Coach Riley said Thursday when he spoke to the media on Zoom. Quote, if you're going to really lean in on the development, it's got to start somewhere. And you've got to plant your flag in the ground and say, this is what we're doing, and that's what we've done. At some point, you've got to decide, are you going to be a portal team that brings in a few high school guys and relies on the portal every year, or are you going to be the other? Now, I think that answer from Coach Riley is easy when you end up rolling craps in the transfer portal. Again, they didn't get anybody on the offensive side of the ball. Let me take a step back. They didn't get any offensive linemen out of the transfer portal. They got a few guys on offense at wide receiver. So if you're going to apply that philosophy to the offensive line, apparently that philosophy doesn't apply to the defensive transfer portal because USC went in pretty deep. You look at their starters, you look at their too deep on that side of the ball. Yeah, transfer portal heavy. Again, I understand where Coach Riley's coming from and the way you have to present it, but let's be honest, USC struck out. They needed to get an experienced offensive tackle. Right now, they're going to roll with it. You've got Elijah Page, you've got Mason Murphy, and it doesn't sound like they're ready to make any changes at the moment. Mostly because there's nowhere to turn to. And if you do turn to your former left tackle, you're making adjustments across the offensive line. All the way across. It's going to be imperative that Elijah Page, Mason Murphy, they play their best game of the year. They've got no choice. The Nittany Lions, their defensive line, if Mason Murphy and Elijah Page cannot handle their defensive ends, yeah, I don't like USC's chances at home. I don't like Miller Moss surviving the entire game. So if USC can do those two primary things, stop Penn State's run game, contain it, protect Miller Moss, do not let Penn State get off to a quick start offensively. That's something they haven't done all year. Don't let it happen now. USC, I think they have a better chance to win this game than anybody's giving an opportunity to win. So you got Penn State. They're coming off that 27-11 win over UCLA at home. By the way, they're the only FBS program to start 5-0 in each of the last 4 years. Okay. If they beat USC, that would obviously they improve to 6-0. But the last time they did that was 1985 when they went 11-0. And the following year, 1986, when they went 12-0. Yeah, they were competing for the national championships that season. We're going to find out if Penn State is a national championship caliber team this weekend, Saturday, 12:30 kickoff, LA Coliseum. Be there. It's sold out. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. I got a new sponsor, and I'm sure a lot of you probably already know about Zbiotics. If not, you should. Zbiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle those rough mornings after drinking. If you're a USC fan, you know what I'm talking about. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough day the next day. You know, those hangover feelings? That's it. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme, and it's going to break down this byproduct down in your gut. Just remember to make Zbiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best the next day. Here's how easy it is to use. Drink the Zbiotics pre-alcohol, and for the best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Okay, then just drink responsibly. Drink as much as you want. Pace yourself. Keep yourself hydrated. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Next day, enjoy it. Wake up feeling refreshed, ready to take on the day. No more hangover feeling. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more, and you're going to get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Zbiotics is back with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege to check out for 15% off your order. NFL fans, how's your season going? Have you gotten a big return on FanDuel yet? America's #1 sports book. I know you like to place your bets there, but if you're not aware, you can also check out highlights. You can check out stats. You can check out what's going on in those other games that you're betting on that you might not be watching at the moment. Now you can do all that. Same place, FanDuel.com. And if you've never used FanDuel before, here's your chance. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. So USC's injuries, they're starting to add up a little bit. Specifically, mostly on the defensive side of the ball. I think we know how much Eric Gentry means to USC's defense. He's a unicorn. He can do things that a lot of people can't because of his size, his length, his height, his ability to go sideline to sideline. And before his injury, I mean, he was playing like a man possessed. I mean, literally one of the top linebackers of the country, leader in all the different statistics. But the problem with Eric is he gets hurt every year. I mean, this was his third year in the program, and it's his third year getting hurt. And this one was actually self-inflicted. He was diving over the pile, over the ball carrier. He wanted to make sure he didn't get called for a late hit. And it was a great effort, but his execution, not so good. He tried to do that whole tuck and roll thing, but when you got a neck like a giraffe, it's not as easy as it looks. So we know Eric Gentry is questionable for this game. He's out indefinitely. Excuse me. Almost over this cold. We know that Rajon Davis, senior linebacker, is redshirting this year. So now you're down 2 linebackers. And being down 2 linebackers against a team that likes to run the ball, that's putting a lot of pressure on Easton Mascarenas-Arnold. Mason Cobb, another guy who has a tendency to get dinged up. So far, so good. Anthony Beavers Jr., he's another one of those guys who can play that hybrid nickel, weak side linebacker type of role. After that, your next experienced guy, he plays special teams. Garrison Madden, linebacker from Georgia. Look, it's going to be imperative that those younger guys, they need to get up to speed soon, because I don't know when Gentry's coming back. He's flirting with being a redshirt this year. Coach Antonlynn, he needs to get creative with his roster right now, because again, those freshmen, that you got to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. Desmond Stevens and Elijah Newby, Jaden Walker. So linebacker, where there's not a lot of depth, especially experienced depth, that's one you cannot afford to lose another guy there. One position where USC has a ton of depth is at cornerback. And we also found out on Thursday from Coach Riley that Jacoby Covington, starting cornerback, is questionable. Quote, Covington will be questionable. He's been limited this week. He progressed a little bit faster than maybe we thought he would have after the game, because Coach Riley said that immediately after the game. He would have guessed that Covington would have been a for sure no this week. However, Coach Riley credited the veteran cornerback and the team trainers for, quote, pushing it along. We'll see if he's available. This is going to be a physical game. And if Jacoby isn't physically ready, I don't know if he helps the team. I'm not saying he's a hindrance, but he's one of USC's most physical guys in the secondary. And if he can't go because it's a shoulder or whatever, I don't know if that helps. I don't know what the exact injury is. I seem to remember him needing help off the field, and it looked like an arm injury. So he was hurting late in that game against Minnesota, and he didn't come back. And as it turns out, that was the winning scoring drive for the Gophers. So who's going to be the next man up? DeCarlos Nicholson? John Humphrey, cornerback transfer from UCLA? Interestingly enough, last week against Minnesota, Humphrey didn't play a snap at cornerback. And Nicholson, he only saw a handful of snaps. Your only constant has been Jalen Smith and Jacoby Covington on the other side. This game, particularly, you need the guy who wants to stick his nose in there, be a part of that action, tackle. It's going to be imperative. I think Prophet Brown, he might be that guy for this game. He should be the guy opposite Jalen Smith. Very physical. He looks more safety than cornerback. Very well put together is what I'm trying to say. Thick. So the lack of experienced linebacker depth, it's starting to get scary. And Covington was playing really good. Pretty good. I mean, that's why he was getting most of the action. He and Jalen Smith at cornerback. I get it. Jacoby's had a couple of bad beats. But by far, he's been the most physical cornerback on the roster. So whoever is available on Saturday, they have to be ready to bring their lunch. And they better be ready to take Penn State's milk money. I need you guys to be the bully, the gooch. The guy who, if you ever watch Different Strokes, if you're as old as I am, when Gary Coleman would say to his brother, "What you talking about with us?" Yeah, that one. USC's defense, they need to be the gooch. They need to be the bully. Start causing problems. Start fearing USC's defense. I mean, how cool would it be if USC's defensive ends stole the show this weekend? Got after Drew Allar, got a few sacks. So far, I think the defensive line's been credited with like 1.5 through 5 games. That's not good. So far, the team hasn't really been affected on the offensive side of the ball as far as injuries are concerned. Again, me knocking on wood. Lake McCree, starting tight end. Killian O'Connor, backup center. That's pretty much it. And hopefully it stays that way. Because again, you start experiencing some impact losses on the offensive line. Oh boy. Oh boy. That might be the perfect segue into the third segment where I'm talking about USC's bandwagon. Different types of fans that USC has. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold, they can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash. Receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. So what kind of fan are you? Are you a bandwagon fan? Sunshine pumper? Are you a realist? Those are typically the 3 categories that fan bases get shoved into. Now, I'll tell you this. I respect the latter 2. The sunshine pumpers, the rah-rahs, the realist, aka people who like to whine or point out how bad things are always going. The super smart people in the room, as they like to characterize themselves. Again, I respect those two groups because at least they care enough to have an opinion and they show up. But LA is full of fans that like to flip-flop. The bandwagon fans. They show up when they're winning. They don't show up when USC is not winning. USC football, their fans, they demand winning, period. And they're only going to show up for that party. That's the bandwagon fan. That's the LA fan who says, yeah, I follow USC football and UCLA basketball. I cannot wrap my head around that, but that's what you get in LA. It's not a college town. Just isn't. You know, the USC fans that only demand winning and only show up for that, that's just an LA thing in general. Okay. That's just the dynamic of living in Hollywood, SoCal. Great fan bases, they don't need bandwagoners for support. They don't. Those teams can show up, they can survive with the rah-rahs, the sunshine pumpers, who's always going to pick their team to win, regardless of the situation. And again, you want the realists, the guys who hold the team to a higher standard, so to speak. The guys who like to say, I told you this team would suck. They don't want to believe it, but they would just rather say it. That way I think it's a coping mechanism. That's my opinion of it. It's one way of coping with the disappointment. Not the team not meeting that person's expectation. That's why I don't use that word. However, those realists, the I told you so guys, they're hard to deal with because they want the team they cheer for to be good, but they won't allow the pumpers, everybody else, to just enjoy themselves, have a good time. It's like misery loves company. You can't have as much fun because I'm not having as much fun. If you haven't noticed, I'm on my Friday rant. It's almost like it's an affront to them. How dare you think your team will win? They're not good enough to win. How dare you think they're going to win? Come on. Let the fans enjoy themselves. Even if they're facing death, let them say, you know what? I can beat death. Who are you to tell them not to? It's like I said, it's almost like they go out of their way to prove they know more about the team because they just can't see USC beating Penn State this weekend. So how dare anybody else believe it? I don't know. I get it. People want to have rational conversations, but it's okay to have a little give and take. You might not agree with a person across the table from you as far as, yeah, USC is going to win this game. But if the rah-rah or the sunshine pumper says, hey, you know what? USC has an advantage here. And if X, Y, Z happens, I can see this team winning. You don't have to agree with it, but you don't have to be a jerk about it. Say, no, you're wrong. Can't happen. Come on. All right. That's it for my Friday rant. Fans, be fans. But if someone wants to say their team's going to win and you both support the same team, don't go out of your way to say you're wrong. They can't win. Just kind of smile and nod. Say, hey, I hope it happens. I don't feel that way, but I hope it happens. It's a great way to have the conversation, right? It's a great way to end this show. We all want USC to win. They're coming into this game. They're hosting Penn State. They're, like I said, 4.5, 5-point underdogs. I don't see why USC can't win this game. We know what they're capable of doing. If Lincoln Riley can get this offense to kind of run on, get into third gear, fourth gear, hey, maybe they'll score more than 30 points. I don't see this being a high-scoring game. I gave you my prediction on a previous episode. We had the crossover with Zach Seiko from Locked On Penn State, Locked On Nittany Lions on yesterday's episode. I've got USC 24, Penn State 20. We'll see what happens. I'll be back after the game for an instant reaction sometime after the game. Got some obligations to take care of first over there with WeRC.com. So until that next episode, until that instant reaction show on Saturday, everyone, you know what to do.